On April 29th, we hosted the Summit for Underrepresented Founders at Venture Mechanics. I hosted the panel entitled Building Your Marketplace from Your Community. I was joined by my incredible and gracious panelists, Arry of Yellow Umbrella Ventures, Rosalinda Mendoza of Mezcal, Dei'Marlon Scisney of Actionable Insights Data, and Brea and Shay Davis of CulturX. This is our conversation on building your marketplace from your community.
And many of us, it's very interesting as entrepreneurs, is that sometimes some of our greatest support will either come from our community or come from outside of our community. And then we realize that the real community are the people that actually support us, or the people that share the same values, the same ethics, and the same morals as us, the same problems as us. So how we define community is very important, especially as entrepreneurs. What problem are we actually going to be solving? So, with no further ado, I'm going to allow my panelists to introduce themselves. I'm going to introduce everybody, but they're going to give us a quick little bio about themselves. First, we have Miss Arry. Thank you. Thank you. Next, we have Miss Rosalinda Mendoza. Mr. Dei'Marlon Scisney. Mr. Shay Davis. And last but not least, Miss Brea Davis. And if you couldn't tell, they're a dynamic duo. So first, go ahead. Please introduce yourself, Arry. Give us a, you're pitching yourself. You're going to tell people who you are, what you do real quick.
It's really hard to wrap up. I'll give you like the long story short. Spent about 12 years in management consulting, worked really hard, worked up the ladder, and one day the boss said, "Hey, Arry, don't you want to make partner?" And I was like, "Actually, no, I don't." And then I was like, "Wait a minute. What am I doing here?" I was working like literally 80 to 100 hours a week, management consulting, and I was probably the top biller too. Like I brought in so much, I doubled the company's revenue literally year over year. And so I was like, what am I doing? This sucks. And so then I said, I'm gonna go to startups. So I pitched an idea and won first place, and I was like, I'll just go wing this and take advantage of the freebies that they gave me. And I convinced 2 other people to quit their jobs with me, and off we went. And I went on that path for a while. Was really obsessed with micropayments and e-commerce. You might have known me from the world of Gift Starter. That was my thing. I was actually the first woman to pitch, 8 months pregnant, 500 startups. I actually I had investors saying like, "You're gonna be a horrible mom because what are you doing here? You're pregnant. What are you doing?" I was like, "I don't know. I'm trying to build a better world for my baby." And then from there, I met my lovely husband. He's the biggest supporter. And he was like, "Let's start investing because, we should give back to the community." I'm like, "Oh." He was like $1,000 at a time, babe. Plankton. We're plankton investors. All right. So like $1,000 to $10,000, his money, not mine. And so we started doing that. And one of the investments we made said, "Hey, Arry, you have this is a long story.
It's all good.
You have a.
It's all good. I'll stop you with it.
Too much wine too, and you have some time investing and working in startups. And so I was like, all right. And so they said, "Hey, let's do an ICO." This is crypto world. And so that's how I got into the world of crypto back in 2016. Crypto being Bitcoin, Ether, Metal, Quantum. Got to tour the world. We raised about $32 million. And so then I was like, oh, holy cow, this place is crazy. I mean, this world is still crazy. And so I came back with, actually, this space doesn't need more entrepreneurs like me building applications. We need more people just translating the stuff, working on standards and guidelines and definitions. And so I started the Cascadia Blockchain Council through the WTIA, which I talked about earlier. And then that became the Advanced Technology Cluster, now working on quantum computing, AI, and blockchain. And then I started the US Blockchain Coalition back in 2021 when I realized the states weren't talking to each other. I was like, wait, is this a Republican versus a Democrat thing on technology? No, this needs to be nonpartisan, you guys. So we started talking to each other, and now we're about 46 states across the US strong. And then, so I work hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder with people from all over the country, diehard red Arkansas, Kansas, with diehard blue states in California, purple states, and so I truly see the diversity across the U.S. We were recently acquired by the GBBC in November of 2023, and so now I serve as the head of strategy, but that's sort of my long story short.
Thank you. Next, Ms. Rosalinda Mendoza.
Hi everyone, Rosalinda Mendoza. I'm co-founder and CEO of Mezcal Artesanal. I co-founded it together with my sister. We make small batch artisanal mezcal from Michoacan, Mexico, and we import it and we deliver it to your home for a shared tasting experience. I used to work in tech, and I made the switch over to Mezcal a couple years ago. And essentially, the way that got started was while I was working in tech. So I grew up in rural Washington. So if you ever miss the sunshine, just go over the mountains to Yakima, and there's sun there. So that's where I grew up, and there's a significant Mexican immigrant population there from Michoacan. And so I grew up going back and forth between Washington and Michoacan. And one of the things that we noticed was that it was really hard to find Michoacan mezcal, but also too, as we got into it, we realized that there wasn't a lot of people from our community telling our story of mezcal and artisanal spirits from our perspective. In fact, less than 5% of all spirit brands in the U.S. are owned by women and BIPOC. So for us, it was very important to be able to tell our stories, because if we don't tell our stories, somebody else is going to tell it for us. So that's how Mezcal got started.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Dei'Marlon Scisney. That's night and day, and Marlin like the fish. But please feel free to call me D or the data guy. And I am the Chief Data Officer or Executive Director of Actionable Insights Data. And so I'll actually be talking a little bit about my for-profit company. This is my nonprofit professional services company that I run. And so my background is actually data and machine learning engineer. I have my master's in data engineering from the Hob. I don't know if y'all familiar with Johns Hopkins, anybody out there? And then I went off to Amazon Web Services and was there for about 6.5 years as a data and machine learning engineer, left there to start my own firm. I've grown it to 7 BIPOC engineers, so really getting acclimated to the procurement process, right, and contracting at the state, local, and federal level as well, which brings me to my nonprofit organization and really identifying the problem when it comes to the procurement process for small businesses, right? And so our whole mission for Actionable Insights Data is to democratize the procurement process for small businesses, and this is through visibility. So we've spent over a year in collecting data. As I mentioned, my background, data and machine learning engineering, have a team of over 1,085 Black-owned businesses actually, but really focusing on diverse women, right, and veteran-owned businesses, and creating a central repository, right? There are multiple directories out there, but again, there's always a data silo and data integrity issue around that. So creating a central repository through the formation of a community-based research consortium. So there's 49 different state and local entities that participate in this to visually, right, be able to identify these businesses, but also streamline the procurement process directly to them. So we have created a software procurement application that is built into a data visualization platform and central repository. So looking forward to talking about that today.
All right. Nice. How do you follow that up? My name is Che Davis. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a brand called CulturX. My background is in filmmaking, storytelling. I found this passion a lot when I was in college, and we started writing our own scripts after deciding that the sports route wasn't for us, and we wanted to build something. I speak in we, so forgive me. Starting CulturX was about telling a cultural narrative that we see as not being highlighted in our schools, we see as not being highlighted in the media correctly, so we wanted to control that. There's talking to my family members, there were so many cultural icons that they just didn't know about, we hadn't heard about, and as I went out and explored the idea and I was talking to my wife about it, and it actually came up with just talking to my nephew about, well, what makes a brand a brand? Like, why do you choose to buy Balenciaga? Why do you choose to buy Louis Vuitton? And he was like, I don't know. And when we looked it up, it was all about the brand story, what that brand stood for. And I was like, you know what would be dope is if I could walk around in like some Malcolm X shoes and we could be like, walk in history. So as I explored that idea more, it became very clear to me that this was a vision of wanting to share cultural narrative and perspective to create identity development. And then I thought to myself, well, what is the true problem that we really want to solve? And when I look at BIPOC community, specifically the African American community, I see the racial wealth gap. And I said, if we can solve the racial wealth gap, just centered on legacy and driving narrative and connecting financial themes to those cultural icons, we can leave a legacy that even our parents didn't know could be left behind. So now the work that we're doing is figuring out a cool way to highlight that and get people behind us and pair ourselves with strong brands so that we can stand on the shoulders of those that already uplifted us. We can make the younger generation aware of it, and essentially everybody becomes a teacher just by wearing clothes. Just by being you, you could teach somebody something that they never knew. So we're excited to tell you guys more about it today.
Outstanding.
That was our 5-minute pitch, so that's what's up. My name is Brea Davis. I am also the co-founder of CulturX, but I am actually sitting here before you in representing our nonprofit called Nourish to Thrive, where we support BIPOC women who are in their perinatal stages, so from conception all the way to 9 months of after they have their little ones. We help with wellness and nutrition programs, specifically delivering healthy, nutritious produce and curated meals to their doorstep. Our own experience with our first little one, I had experienced preeclampsia. I had experienced so many different health issues that I didn't even know where I was aware just because of me and my being a black woman. And so spreading that awareness and making other women of color know that they're not alone and there are support to help them is kind of how we got started in that. And so that's why I'm representing today.
Outstanding. So we have amazing founders up here, and they're all, the common theme that I'm hearing, once again, is community, right? From prenatal, right, to legacy, to our cultural heritage and our cultural background, to even, my favorite community, the crypto community. The importance of that is now, okay, I have my community, now I'm going to start solving problems. So I'm going to pose this question to you first, Rosalinda, about what was the issue, what was the problem? You saw an opportunity, but what was the issues that you encountered in starting your business and getting your business to where it is now?
Well, well, first, the pandemic, but that's a whole other story, global supply chain issues. But once we were finally able to overcome the pandemic and all of the global supply chain issues, and we were finally able to launch and bring our product into the States, is that our product, if you go to our website, moselmezcal.com, you'll see that we were very intentional about representing this specific region in Mexico where our family is from. We wanted to show a new perspective of Mexico. And so a lot of when you break into the spirits industry, typically even though the end consumer is, are people who are drinking it, right? But usually to break in, you have sort of like the middleman that you have to get through, because alcohol is heavily regulated and there's all sorts of issues. But the gatekeepers are typically beverage directors or bartenders, and a lot of folks in that community do not look like us up here. And so they had early on, some of the challenges that we encountered is that they had a specific idea of what a Mexican product should look like, and we did not fit that stereotype. And so what it felt like we were kind of ramming our heads into the wall. But then what we started to do, what we noticed was that we had cultivated, we had our email, always collect emails on your website. We had a great email list, and then also on Instagram. And so we started collaborating with up and coming chefs and doing mezcal dinners, and they would sell out within hours. And so there we were able to walk them not only through the history of what we were trying to do with mezcal, but also create like this fan base and cultivate that community. And so now they were the ones asking the beverage director, like, hey, you need to bring Mosel into this bar. And that's how we were able to break into a lot of spaces.
Absolutely. So you were able to kind of go around. You found out that the actual customer that you had was the beverage directors, but the end users were the people who actually helped break you in. Which
Yes.
is going to bring me to my next question. I'm going to ask this for Dee. Do you identify a problem that there was an issue in procurement and that there isn't a list of BIPOC owners of companies that you could source from? So how did you go about, why did you feel that that was important? Why did you feel it was important to create that tool, the tools that you've created?
Yeah, so I do want to preface that OMWBE does have an active directory to where you can look and see OMWBE. And for those of you that don't know, that's the Office of Women and Minority-Owned Business Enterprises. There's a certification process that you can go through, right? And this is really important for set-asides. And when I talk about set-asides at a state, local, and federal level, they have set-asides, right? So, for example, the Port of Seattle, last year they procured $150 million. Of that $150 million, 14% of that went to BIPOC businesses specifically. It was a state mandate, right, that these set-asides would be allocated to these businesses. So to that point, there is a repository, but it's of certified, right, businesses under OMWBE. There are multiple directories that exist, right? These directories create data silos within our community, across the Black community just in general, right? There's over 49 state and local entities that are collecting data on Black businesses, which was the primary purpose of that community-based research consortium. And so in doing that, right, and really being able to identify the problem, it's through that collaboration, sorry. And so with that, why is it important, in getting back to that? So in mapping out those directories and creating a central repository for visibility and accessibility purposes was really important. But then the why behind that is because when you look at the data, I am very data driven. Sarah said something that really piqued my interest, that across, I think it was the United States or the world, I can't remember what she said, I think it was the United States, that 2% of the funding were going to women-owned businesses. But when you look at Black businesses and BIPOC businesses, according to OMWBE standards, right, last year, minority-owned businesses got 2% of the funding across the entire state of Washington. Of that, Black businesses got 0.019% of that. So not even 1% of the total funding that was allotted across the state of Washington. That's the problem, right? And so with that, being able to not only, because, and then there was something else said in the last panel that really resonated with me, is that we are here, y'all, we are here. Gone are you saying, hey, there are not Black people in janitorial services, in catering, right? There's over 240 NAICS code options across the state of Washington to identify your business. And that's where we come into play, and addressing that problem, but also in addressing the problem of economic development, right, amongst these businesses as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Arry, this next question is for you. When you saw that disjointed body of states that weren't talking to each other, how did you tap into your community in order to solve that problem? Because as you and I both know, that the crypto community can be very siloed. And then getting people who understand that it's important to talk to the government is an even smaller group of people, degens. But how did you go about doing that?
I'm still going about doing it. I still have 4 more states to go, 46, remember. I'm looking for Delaware, Alaska, Michigan, and Nevada right now.
And it's interesting that Delaware and Nevada aren't already on board, given that they're kind of corporate havens, and then Nevada's a crypto. But go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
I'd say I'm probably an anomaly. I see everyone as my community. And so I had a problem, Washington State. We were a very hostile environment to this technology. And again, remember I said this technology should be nonpartisan. This technology should be used to solve human problems. It shouldn't be made, red or blue or whatever, right? It's a thing. It's a hammer. And so I called up Texas, and the head of the Texas Blockchain Council is Lee Bratcher, and I was like, yo, you're making this a Republican versus Democrat thing. It sounds like, is this a red versus blue thing to you? He said, no, but, I'm winning. And I said, well, can we all win? Because we are all part of the same United States, right? And I think if more of us work together, then we're going to get further. And he's like, yeah, you're right. More of us should be talking together. And so literally 10 days later, we had about 30 states on the call. And so I think the community is like finding people that have a shared North Star. We all want better economic development for our communities. We want better jobs. We want the investment. We want good food and good vacations with our family and friends. I mean, that's literally what binds us all. It doesn't matter if you're red or purple or green or whatever, right? And so I think that's what brings all of us states together. And even on policy issues, we're not exactly 100%, right? You're talking to an Alabama versus Washington or California, but we still work together. And so I think it's just kind of framing everything into we have a shared North Star. We care about this country, we care about the people in our country, and then each of us are stewards for our local, hyper-local communities, right? I care about Washington and the Pacific Northwest, but I also care about the United States.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That shared North Star, I like that because that gives, we may not necessarily agree about how to get there, but we all agree that that's where we want to go. And that opens up the flexibility for everyone to kind of decide how they want to get there. So my next question is to the Davises. When we talk about that North Star, it sounds to me that your North Star was about being able to provide history through clothes. What has been the most upsetting part of getting people to see that North Star?
That's a good question. The most upsetting part? I would say the challenge is people don't know what they don't know. So it's one thing to introduce the idea of, say, from a African-American male standpoint, of knowing who Malcolm X is, or hearing my father introduce me to Martin R. Delaney and Paul Robeson, and you're like, I didn't even know a work ethic like Paul Robeson's could exist, and yet if I was to turn to any of my friends, they have no idea who Martin R. Delaney is. They don't know who Paul Robeson is outside of the awards that we were given when we were maybe athletes, the Paul Robeson Awards that they would give us. So it was, for the lack of a better word, I'm not going to call it ignorance, I'm going to call it lack of knowledge. It was frustrating when they didn't know, but they looked so inspired. Like when my dad told me who Ya Asantewa was, I just like saying the name, but then when I read, this was a a woman queen who stepped up at a time when British colonialists were trying to take over and take their throne. And she rallied everybody. I was like, we need these type of stories. I have 2 daughters. I need them to know that type of story. I need you to know the type of empowerment that you can exude, the type of inspiration that you could provide to the group around you. So it's been, the only frustrating part is everybody says it's cool. Like, man, I really like the concept. Those are some dope shoes, bro. But what I really want to get them into is like, if Michael Jordan could have a shoe just for playing ball and being a great athlete, why can't Malcolm, who gave his life? Why can't Martin, who gave his life? Why can't Ya Santewa, who fought for her tribe? Like, these are the stories that truly, truly matter. When everything was on the line, they stepped up, and we don't know enough about those people to even know how we should step up. So we're kind of just showing up in spaces like it's like all we can be is employees, all we could be is in the service industry, all we can do is this one thing. We can only be an athlete. We can only be an actor if they let us be that. And I just want to get people in the mindset, don't let anybody tell you what you can be. Innovate your legacy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, no, you're not getting out of this, Mrs. Davis.
Sorry. A little passionate.
My husband, the talker.
Well, you know, the thing is I share his passion. I share his passion. Some of you may not know, but I was in the social justice space for 15 years. Yeah, 15 years. And it takes a toll on you. As being entrepreneurs, it takes a toll on you. All of us in this room can have battle scars. And when we look at our scars, do we look at them with regret or do we look at them with pride? I think that's the number one question that we should have. And so now when we start looking at the people who share those kind of scars, share those kinds of stories, Mrs. Davis, it seems like you've had some scars and now you have a passion for helping others. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So part of some of the health issues that I dealt with with our first little one, she's 4 years old now, living bright and strong, but she was born at 32 weeks. She was 2 pounds, 13 ounces, and she was in the NICU for 34 days. I know the date and the time. But I realized as I was sharing this story and, you know, we would talk to friends and family, it was a common thing. Being born early in my community is a common thing. Having high blood pressure is a common thing. These are things that no one talks about. Or if they did, I wasn't aware. And so understanding that now, in looking at the statistics, Black women are 2 times likely for death at birth mortality. Indigenous women are 8 times compared to white women. And so those statistics all start at, or can help at least, with the health portion, taking care of your body, making sure you're eating the right foods. And the reason why we started actually delivering meals is because we, after doing some surveying, understanding that the mothers in different communities, they're working moms, by the time they get home, they don't want to cook dinner, they want to go to sleep, or they're taking care of their family in other avenues. And so it's not just so simple as delivering fresh produce or going to a food pantry. It's actually providing them with meals that are helping sustain them, helping them with their bone density during certain parts of pregnancy, helping them being able to stay hydrated with certain foods, right? Because foods have hydration. Certain foods that even help with the blood flow, like blueberries. People don't really know about certain foods that are actually supporting your pregnancy and your postpartum journey. And so that's really the part of the reason why we decided to do it in this way and not just kind of just saying, here's a program, follow it. We want to show up at the doorstep.
Which is, yeah, let's give that a round of applause. Which is interesting because those are all opportunities for business, right? Mm-hmm. Prenatal care, making sure that you are eating healthy foods and the foods that are going to help you while you're pregnant, being able to tell your history, knowing about other businesses, being also to tell your history and share your history, share your culture through spirits, right? And also now here it is trying to teach your dumb politicians a little something about this great technology. I can say it, I'm a politician, okay? I can talk about my kind, all right? I can talk about politicians. But I want to make sure, Ron, how are we doing on time? Because
we should start Q&A.
Yeah, I could go on and on. So I'm glad that I was able to get each one's perspective. Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh, snap. Here we go. Okay, go ahead.
For Dee, it's really tough getting government contracts for anybody. So my question is, do you, as part of your program, help educate Black companies on how to do that? Is that part of it as well?
Correct.
Or,
And
I'm sorry, Mike, I got sidetracked. Education first, like going out to the businesses and saying, hey, this is what's available to you. Do you do solicitation for it as well?
Yes, correct. So we are working with technical. I do want to preface one thing, and I did not make this a point whenever I kind of introduced the company. This is not just for Black businesses. It started with Black businesses, right, because of the lack of data, right, and the inequities that are plaguing the Black community from a funding perspective, right? When you look across the entire BIPOC spectrum, across all of minorities, Black businesses suffer the most. And so with that, really highlighting that, but in collecting this data and in speaking to other individuals, having community sessions, town hall meetings, right, community listening sessions, et cetera, this data does not exist across the entire BIPOC spectrum. And so not only are we focusing on Black, right, businesses, but also indigenous, right, and other people of color, women-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses as well. And there's 125,000 minority-owned businesses across the entire state of Washington, and OMWBE just has 5,000, right, give or take. And so with that, did want to preface that. But on the education side, yes. So working directly with entities like the Department of Enterprise Services that actually leads procurement. I've been in contact with Ms. Pamela Duncan, with Shayna Barehead, with all of that whole team, the PI Immersion Program, all of them with DES, OMWBE, Department of Commerce, right? Office of Equity is also backing this as well initiative. And so with that, really being able to preface the importance of education, because there are people that are in different journeys of their of procurement, right, and really being able to highlight and identify that and provide that hand-holding experience for them.
Thank you. Jet.
Yeah, for D as well, as a follow-up, I know you talked about getting to government contracts, right? But how do you think you could use, or we could use the data for your mission right now to this time penetrate, the big elephants in the room, like the Amazon. There's a lot of money in there too, but it's hard for, and I'm speaking for myself, it's hard for a small software development company to penetrate those, but how can we use your data to penetrate those?
Yeah, so I've actually been in touch with Tiffany, who leads supplier diversity at Amazon Web Services, and they are interested in leveraging our data as well. So it's not so much just at a state, local, but also federal and private entities as well. And so in doing this, right, it provides, so I want to kind of talk about the process. So it provides the accessibility side, and when you can log into the system and now say, hey, I'm looking for businesses in janitorial services, right, across the 240 NAICS code options. So janitorial, catering, childcare, whatever that may be. Let's filter that down. Now I understand, hey, there's 52 Black businesses across the entire state of Washington in janitorial services, right? So there's the accessibility side, but then it's also streamlining the process and providing the contract. So again, my background is data and machine learning. So I've been doing extensive work with my data team around backend APIs and web scraping, because one problem that I face as a small business owner going through these contracts is that why do I have to log into 12 different platforms to find these contracts, right? That is an issue, right? From Seattle IT to Department of Commerce to DES to, all of these, City of Seattle, right? Port of Seattle. It's like they all have their own individual individual management system. But what does that look like to now be able to centralize that all in one platform and filter down in real time and see your contracts in real time, right, on a day-to-day basis? So it's not only the accessibility, but it's the streamlining side, right, but then also the collaboration. So I've embedded emailing, direct messaging amongst these individuals to be able to collaborate on contracts as well. So let's get some more time. I don't want to take up too much time here to also discuss that.
Shout out to Actionable Insights.
My question is for the Davises. It's a little bit hard to tell exactly kind of what stage your company is at, but how can we be wind in your sails? Where can you use help, amplification, and connections?
That is an amazing question, and thank you. Right now, it's all about brand awareness for us. So we view, we call it wearable tech, or we think of it as wearable tech, and then we call it social impact wear. And the goal is for people to become teachers just by wearing it and being themselves. And the people that you inspire, they see the QR code. I've had 13-year-olds walk up to me and just want to scan out of curiosity. Wearing the clothes will be a great help going onto the website, but also working with us from a marketing and sales point. We talk with Dee all the time. So it becomes about how. We're passionate, but there are those things that we don't know how to do that we need people that have sales skills, a bigger network, so that we can pair our brand with the right people and help us spread what we're trying to do. And once we get that going, I think this is really just about a marketing and sales tactic for us. And so many people love it that I think it'll catch fire. And with people like yourselves in the room, we'll be able to grow this into something very impactful.
Sounds like he needs to be on intentionalist.com.
Yes, absolutely.
We work with, just super fast, we work with Black Players for Change, which is the Major League Soccer Black Players Association.
Okay.
And like athlete fits pregame and whatnot has become a thing, but I think that your mission would vibe with them. They're a great organization, and on the women's side, we work with the Black Women Player Collective. We work with Seattle Storm locally, so hit me up.
Absolutely.
Thank
There we go. One last question. See, this is the beauty of venture mechanics. You see this? This is the beauty of venture mechanics. You get funded, get connected, get promoted, all just by attending the Summit for Underrepresented Founders. Take you.
Question for Arry. It's hard to get behind closed doors and make deals with governments. How do you do it?
He wants to know how the sausage is made.
It is really hard. I think for this particular industry, we're very siloed. We're very immature. The tech industry itself has been around for 60, 70 years. So the tech industry is really young. And as a tech industry, we've just started investing in buying and hiring government relations managers and community managers, right? And so this Web3 blockchain space is even younger, and we're even more dumb in so many ways. I mean, literally, that's literally it. We're so immature. And so it's going to be a little while. We're working on growing up. We're working on growing up as fast as we can. We're working on growing up and organizing as fast as we can. It's kind of regaining and reestablishing trust with government, building those public and private partnerships, and showing up as professionals and as adults in the room, and kind of reframing, what is the problem and what are the issues, and, understanding the government really wants to do consumer protection and, keeping out the bad guys, and theoretically so do we. So let's meet there and work on that. And I think we're getting there little by little, but we still have a little bit of growing up to do.
Thank you. To answer the last part of your question, donate to your politician. When I was running, the people who donated to my campaign, I answered the first time they called. So if you want something done in your government, donate to your candidate, and they will answer the phone, I guarantee. Thank you, everyone. This has been an incredible panel. I want to thank my incredible panelists, Arry, Rosalinda Mendoza, Dei'Marlon, Scisney, Shay Davis, and Brea Davis. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.